Hi everyone, welcome to a new tutorial. Thanks for joining me today. So today we're going to work with pastels. It's been a while. I really love working with pastels, with pastel pencils on pastel matte. So I'm using Stabilo Carbatellos on light gray pastel matte, I think it is. Quite small size, I would say. It's about 7 by 9 inches. So quite small, and we'll be drawing a pumpkin, or I'll be drawing a pumpkin, because it's fall. I love fall. Fall and winter are my favorite seasons, so I had to do something like a pumpkin this fall, and I'll probably do some winter related drawings as well. I'm really looking forward to those. But in this one we're drawing a pumpkin, and we'll be adding the background as well. And then it's kind of a still life scene, just a pumpkin on a piece of wood with a really nice bokeh background, which almost looks a little bit Christmassy to me. So really fun drawing to make as well. Not very long. It took about 1.5 hours, maybe a bit longer, 1 hour and 3/4, something like that. So it's quite kind of a quick one to make, also very suitable for beginners. So let's get started with that. And I'm going to start out with a sketch freehand, and I'll be doing that with white pastel pencils. A pastel pencil, this one is from Faber-Castell Pitt. I'll be using this one for this drawing because I lost my white Stabilo one. I have no idea where it is. So I still have this white one from Faber-Castell lying around, so I'm just using that one, which also works really nice. I like the pits as well. So I'm using this one to sketch with. I always like to sketch with a color that's slightly lighter than the background color. That makes it easier to correct mistakes if there are any, or to go over the sketch lines with the colors later on. So I did the sketch quite quick. Of course, in the tutorial, it's all real time. So this is on Patreon for the $10 tier, real time with the sketch included as well. So you can follow along if you're interested in that. The link is in the description. So after the sketch, I moved on to the background, and I'm starting on the left. So I'm working from left to right. And for this one, I decided to not completely copy the reference photo. I kept the background a little bit more simple when it comes to colors compared to the reference, but still I tried to put in quite a bit of color variation so it didn't become boring. And it also has a really nice bokeh effect on the background. So what I started out with is a mix of brown and green, just basic dark brown and dark green as well, a little bit of gray. And then on top of that, I started drawing all those bokeh circles with some brighter colors like oranges and a bit of yellow. And I made sure to build this up in layers. So the first circles, I made sure to make them all very different. So if they're all the same, it looks very uniform, very static. So all the circles have to be different. Some are overlapping, some are not, and some are more opaque. So I'm building that up. I'm starting with the ones that are more in the background, and then I'm finishing with the very brightest circles. It's a very good one to practice your circles, definitely. And then when the left side was more or less finished, I moved on to the right side, and I did that in exactly the same way. I decided to add a little bit of orange and a little bit of violet into the base colors of the background to get a bit more color variation in there. And yeah, that looked quite nice. So I built that up, and you have to build up the background in multiple layers as well to make sure that it's very smooth looking. Especially pastel matte, it can take lots of layers, so you can just keep building that up and blending it out until it looks smooth. Right now in the video it's quite sped up, so it looks like it didn't take a long time, but actually I spent quite some time on the background. And also on the right side, building up those circles with different colors. Also decided to add some blue in there. And then the combination of the oranges and the greens and the blue and the yellow it made it look a bit Christmassy, which I actually really liked. Alright, so then when the background was finished, I moved on to the pumpkin. And this one is a really good one to practice your pastels, also to practice sketching freehand onto pastel mat, because the shape of the pumpkin isn't very hard to do. And if it looks a little bit different from the reference, it doesn't really matter because each pumpkin is different. So very good one for a beginner with pastels. So I first decided to map out all those dark lines in the pumpkin, like those grooves, and I did that with a darker orange, not a very bright orange, but more like a brownish orange tone. And then I did a base layer of that same color on the pumpkin, and it's quite important to follow the shape of the pumpkin, so follow that rounded shape in your strokes. That brings a lot of shape into the pumpkin already. And then I moved on to adding lots of other colors on top. So not only orange, because that will look very flat, so I also decided to add some pink and some dark purplish color and some brighter red, and that makes sure that there's quite a lot of variation in the colors, which also makes the pumpkin more realistic. Also make sure that the bottom, so the very bottom of the pumpkin, is the darkest, and then the top catches the most light. So that's where I added the lightest colors. And definitely on those parts of the pumpkin that come forward a little bit, so the areas in between those grooves, which catch a lot of light. So make sure to add lots of bright light colors there. And then I did that stem, is it the stem? I'm not sure what you call that trunky part of the pumpkin on top with some browns, also a bit of orange. I made sure to add the same colors that I used in the background as well onto the pumpkin. That makes sure that the whole scene fits together. And after that, I moved on to the piece of wood. That was the trickiest part, I feel, because you really have to get that shape in there and that woody texture. And for this, it's quite important to not only put brown in there, but also mix in some grays. I mixed in some purples, the colors from the background as well. And that made it look more realistic and it fit with the background. And I made sure to really follow that shape of the wood, that rounded shape. Started working underneath the pumpkin and then move outwards. And finally I added the textures on there, so the darker shadows, the darker ridges, and then the highlights as well with some lighter colors. And after that, the drawing was finished. So quite a quick one to make, but very good to practice. So if you want to follow along with this one, you can look on Patreon. And then I want to thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And any suggestions for subjects for new drawings are always welcome as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys!